All right, we're going to talk about contemplation. The more you contemplate, the weaker you're going to get. And the less chance you're going to have of actually winning against it. I'm going to share some of my stories with it. I have countless hours of contemplation with alcohol. The more you think of it, the more power you can give it. And I will tell you this, as time goes on, especially after like the 3 to 4 month mark, the contemplation sort of subsides. Like that terrorizing, perpetual mindset will alleviate, right? And when you're in it, you're going to think, when will this ever end? It's just like when you quit smoking and it's like a snake snapping at your head, just smoke, 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 nicotine, nicotine, nicotine. Like that goes away too. And that is so hard to get through. That's why so many people can't quit smoking. It's a mental battle as much as it is physical. I mean, nicotine's out of your system in 72 hours and people battle it for weeks on end, right? Because it becomes more mental. Alcohol is no different to this adversary, okay? Let's give you some examples. Like Friday night, I didn't plan on drinking, or if I was, a few weeks into sobriety, I'll get home and like, I talked about this briefly before, from like 4 to 8 p.m. It was just like purely controlling my mind. I would even lay down for like an hour just debating with myself whether I should drink or not, why I should drink, how I should drink, how I could get away with drinking without anyone knowing about it, judging me. Is it worth it? Isn't it worth it? Trying to play the tape forward. Sometimes playing the tape forward is not always strong enough, like thinking how you're going to feel the next day, how you're going to impact others, yada, yada, yada. That didn't always save me. It's a great tool to use, but it didn't always work. I would sit there and try to like embed it into my brain, and there were times I convinced myself and I'd be good for 20 minutes and I go right back to contemplating drinking, any type of trigger or stressor. And it was like this never ending battle every Friday freaking night. Now, like Sundays, never bothered by it because I knew I had to work. Weekdays, never bothered by it because I knew I had to work. Never drank during my work week. Not even a beer at night. That's another advantage I had with that. But Fridays, holidays, any nice success, any bad failure, they were massive triggers for me. Anytime I would get like a day off on a Friday, I would plan to drink on like a Thursday. You know what I mean? Like anytime I'd have an extra day off, it was like go time, drink time. If I had a week's vacation, go time, drink time, I would, you know what I mean? I would try to fill that time with drinking because I had time to recover. I'd always play off my recovery, which is another topic too. Yeah. But I would sit and just contemplate endlessly. And I wouldn't always win. There were times I would grab my keys, walk out to the front door, stop myself. I've driven to the location, stop myself. That was rare. I've only done that like once. And one time I went into the store and they didn't have my preferred drink at the time because I went on kicks like rum, vodka, beer, 8%ers, 10%er, I had my phases as most people do. And the last few years it was the harder stuff because I'm trying to get drunk. I'm not trying to drink a bunch of beer and feel, beer became obsolete to me. I never was a big beer drinker. I still think it's disgusting to this day. Now, like a nice kegger that tasted smooth and good. I love the taps, I didn't mind a Bud Light or Miller Lite here and there, but like it was never my go-to. So people that like miss that taste, I don't really relate to that because I never really thought beer was that great. And if I tasted it now, I'd probably throw up. Probably throw up if I even tasted liquor, to be honest. But where was I going with this? I showed up and they didn't have my preferred drink and I just was not in the mood for anything else, and I left and I didn't drink that night. That's so rare. You're committing to getting in your car. Every step you take towards it, your odds are drastically reduced, and that's just the truth. If I walk into a liquor store or a beer distributor, I was going. There was no turning back. Even though I think the whole time, why am I doing it? I've talked about this briefly in another video, but you got to win those battles. And in time, I don't even have that issue. Like, my Friday evenings I don't even think about it, because I'm not going to give up 8 months of sobriety at this point. I'm going to a year, and it's going to be a battle. Never going to end. I'm never, going to say I've conquered this, but it does get easier. And that whole inner war in you will subside. It's so aggravating and it's so annoying just obsessing on it. And that could be more of my OCD trait too, but I'm sure some of you can relate to it. Just contemplation, just thinking about it. And, your thoughts give it power, and then it becomes reality. I remember like just warping from here to drinking within an hour. And it was sort of a rush to me, like going and defying people, like people that are like, oh, he part of me that like thrived in the misery, like defying, like, oh, he's drinking again. F it all. Not caring, disaster, like shutting off, acting like a fool and not being able to control myself. Like, there was a part of me that loved it, And I remember like getting a bit of a rush going and getting alcohol and just saying F it, Probably a part of the addiction as a whole, but that will subside in time. I don't even really debate with it. It's not even negotiable at this point. Like, if I think about it, it'll come and go. And I have not sat here and wasted hours and months. Like, that's usually like a first few week thing for me. And it's rough. And then, yeah, another video is like living for the weekend. Just your Monday starts and you're just thinking about drinking Friday and you're just waiting to get the next drunk on. Well, that's not a good way to live either. But yeah, when you're stuck in contemplation mode, just try your best to get through it without giving in, and you'll learn to not think about it as much, and then it doesn't give it as much power. It'll become non-negotiable to you. Like, it's just not worth it, right? But the first few weeks, you're still experiencing, like, even though you might not be a heavy, alcoholic or a heavy binge drinker, you're still going to have slight detox and cravings for it. Like, it's definitely physically addictive. Like, your body's going to want it, even though you're not having withdrawal symptoms. The next weekend, like, that craving is there. Your first few weeks of sobriety, you're going to have that physical, like, I want some alcohol. You know what I mean? Your body's going to want it. Mentally, your brain wants it. And that does subside. From my experience, after, like, you get through the first week, it gets better. And then 3 to 4 weeks, it gets much better. And then after 3 or 4 months, it's like doubling up from there. Like I've said before, I want to see what a year feels like, 5 and 10 years feel. I hope I get there. Nothing's definite. But I feel like it's the gift that keeps giving. But on the other side of that sword, that double-edged sword, you can't let that pink cloud make you feel so good where you're like, I'm good to drink again. I'm good to moderate again. You got to constantly be vigilant and realize that you got to stay the path, and it will keep rewarding you. Because a lot of people get to that pink cloud, and then they feel like they can drink again, and they just lose it again. Every time I've drank after a big stint of sobriety, I've always regretted it, and it always went back to step one. Every time. Just for everybody. If you somehow moderate and you're in a better place than you were, more power to you. Most people can't do that. And people that don't understand binge drinking and drinking to excess, they're never going to understand it. They're going to constantly question why you can't moderate, and they're not you. If they had a month in your brain during actively drinking, they would understand it. They'd understand the grips and pulls and the cravings that come along with it. They're not experiencing that, so they can't speak from that standpoint. So they don't get the cravings, the contemplations, the OCD thoughts, the intrusive thoughts, the constant hangover cycle. They can't relate to it, so they can't speak on it. So it's easy for them to be like, oh, you're good just having a few. You're good doing this. Oh, just have a few. Or, it's easy to, or the on the other end, it's easy to not drink. I haven't drank. I'll meet people that are like, I haven't had a drink in 4 months. Well, yeah, you weren't an active binge drinking alcoholic with a whole family tree of alcoholics. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't stand when people do, well, I haven't had a drink in 10 weeks. I don't care about it. I'll drink one beer and be done. Yeah, well, you're not someone who struggles with it or has a whole family tree, or you haven't had active weekends of binge drinking and having horrible experiences with it. So don't diminish me because you don't have a drinking problem. You know what I mean? Come from my genetics and my experiences, and then we'll talk, right? Like someone being like, well, I never used heroin. I don't get why people get hooked on it. Yeah, well, go shoot up with a needle and then, for a month and then come talk to me. You'll be a strung out junkie that needs it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, everyone has a choice. They made the choice to use it. But once they're actively in the addiction, I feel like it is a disease. It's their choice. I could easily be a heroin addict, meth head, but I made the choice to not do it. I know if I went and sniffed coke, I'd spend all my money and my whole life would be messed up. I know if I took a hit of crack, my life would be messed up. I know how my addictive personality is. I know how people in my family can be with this, with OCD and addictive personality traits. It's a blessing and a curse. I'll play the guitar nonstop, addictively, right? And then in the same sense, I'll abuse alcohol. But I made the choice to not use higher level drugs because I know what it would do to me. It would kill me, ruin my savings. I made the choice not to. I could easily have those diseases, but I chose not to, okay? I know the outcomes. And having relatives and best friends that have died from this stuff, it sort of led me astray from them at a young age, right? But alcohol still got to me. So, who knows where I would be? Any of those substances. I've been around them all, never touched them. That's my choice. But yeah. When you're actively contemplating, just know you just got to get through it. Just have a non-negotiable attitude. And if you need to detox, that's a whole other thing. Don't just not drink and then end up having health issues. There's levels to this as far as detox and alcohol consumption. But yeah, not much else to say. These videos are running extra long and I'm rambling a bit more off topic, but just know that contemplation goes away. And that was one of the most aggravating things for me, was spending hours just contemplating, fighting with myself mentally. The mental battle is probably by far worse than the physical, unless you are drinking daily. But the mental, like, everyone's like, it's so easy, just don't drink. But there's a war inside everyone's head that they don't understand. And that war is tormenting and very perpetual. And it's a mental pain, that people don't see. I'm sure you can relate to it. Thanks for listening.